So we're going to start our story in Leicester, England on February 11th of 2022. It's around 1:20 a.m. in the middle of the night. And you have to picture this silver Skoda, they call it, a little silver car, and it's roaring down the highway at 100 miles per hour. Now there's two more cars on this highway doing the exact same speeds as well, but this wasn't a race. This wasn't a joyride. The silver car, which had two people inside, they were running for their lives. This was a high-speed chase, and the two cars chasing the silver car had nothing but ill intent. And even at these dangerous speeds, these pursuers, they were ramming the silver car, trying to get them to stop. And it would look this way for the next 10-mile stretch of this highway until the two cars struck the silver car in such a way, in such an angle, that it sent the silver car careening across the highway and striking the center median. Now, this impact, it was so violent that it would break the car literally in half, also ejecting the car's engine into the air. It was struck at 100 miles per hour. So the momentum alone, even after hitting the rail, sent the car flying into a tree. The two people that were within this car, they were trapped inside as the car burst into flames. There was no escape for them, and in something like that, there was no surviving. The two cars, they just watched the destruction they had just caused, and then simply drove off. So how did we get here? And that's what we're going to get to today. Now, this case is going to play out like a soap opera. It has success, it has family bonds, and then you get narcissism, torrid affairs, revenge, blackmail, everything you'd want in your daytime television. But if I am to be completely honest, it is truly an unbelievable story, right? If it was a script, but for the fact that this is a true story, it just makes it all that more incredibly disturbing. So, welcome to my channel. My name is Monks. The stories I tell here aren't just headlines. They're real people, real emotions. These are real stories, and they're not being told for the sake of telling a good story. There's always a life lesson that we can extract from these tales, a lesson in life that we can learn from and discuss. So please, if you take away anything from this story, share it in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories like this. So first, we must meet a young woman named Mahek Bukhari. She was born in England on May 22nd of 1999 to her parents Ali Raza and Ansreen Bukhari. Now, she also has a brother, and his name is Arman. Now, they all live in this nice 3-bedroom house in the city of Stoke-on-Trent, and that's located in central England. Now, her father is a security guard, and her mother worked at the pharmacy, which provided the family a very comfortable living. Now, Mahek would go to high school, and she would be considered the popular girl in school. So from what I've read, she never really received good grades at school, and she was always more focused, I would say hyper-focused, on herself, okay? But she was more focused on getting ready for school than actually how she did in it, if that makes sense, right? She was a fashionista, right? She followed the latest fashions, and she would walk into school completely dolled up. Okay, she is described as being just 5 foot 2 inches tall and 120 pounds, right? Basically, she had this big personality, and everybody knew her. But they were also put off by her, which does make sense in a way, you know, because since being popular doesn't mean you're necessarily liked by people. You know, we've all learned that from the movie Mean Girls, right? Because her fellow classmates would remember her as being extremely self-absorbed. And Mahek's favorite topic to talk with them about is Mahek and the new accessories or whatnot that she would buy. And here is a wonderful lesson we could take away from this part of the story, okay? So my 6-year-old son, he's in his show-off phase. All you parents know what I'm talking about, right? This is what me and my wife have discovered, okay? So we make note to remind this little pipsqueak that if you have to tell people how cool you are, then you're probably not as cool as you think, right? Now, if you just work hard and be kind and your friends or people around you come to the conclusion themselves that you're cool, then you actually are. But of course, my son is 6 years old, right? A work in progress, and we're working on it. But Mahek is a high schooler at this point, and she's continuously bragging, reminding her peers of how cool she is, which in turn didn't win her any meaningful friendships throughout grade school. So after high school, she went to Manchester Metropolitan University and majored in fashion. And we must give Mahek her flowers for this because she was following her, her passion, something that she's always wanted to do. And there's something in this life that we can all respect, and that is a person's get up and go. And she didn't have any delusions of being an academic. She had a passion for fashion, and that's what she was going to do. So while she was in college, the now 19-year-old Mahek decided that she had what it takes to be famous. So in 2019, she created a TikTok account called Maybe Vlogs and started talking about her favorite topics, makeup, fashion, and herself. And as much as this was off-putting to the people around her and why she had no friends, this was perfect for something like social media. Mahek talking about Mahek was the right style of content for her. And Mahek looked good on camera. She was a good-looking girl with a big personality, which is a great formula for social media. Well, to Mahek, hey, this was her calling. What did she even need to go to college for, right? So she immediately drops out, right? This is her get up and go. It doesn't matter. She don't need to think about it. She was going to become a full-time influencer, and I assume she would put her blood, sweat, and tears into something like this, and it started to work. She would start to find, a small amount of success. Then the pandemic hit. And in 2020, we were all quarantined in our houses, and many of us kept occupied with what? Videos, right? And TikTok, which in turn made it a booming time for creators of the platform, and one of those creators would be Mahek. And in these little shorts, she would show off her TikTok dances. She would show off her latest apparel, And of course, this topped off with her being easy on the eyes. This would garner her over 130,000 followers by the end of the pandemic. And this would translate into some money in the bank as well as sponsorships began to come in. She would even start putting her family into her videos, to do those viral TikTok dances, She would even put her brother Arman in one, as well as her mother. I heard her dad was in one. I couldn't find the video. Now, even though these videos she did by herself, how the channel started, did do very well. She noticed that the ones with her mom in it did the best in views. And we're talking about 3 to 4 times better. So obviously, the angle of a mother-daughter duo was resonating with her audience, and so she would have her mother on more frequently. And she would spin off this success into 30,000 followers on Instagram, 4,000 more on YouTube, and everything was going great for the Maybe Vlogs channel, and it would only get better. So as the wheels of the economy, right, because it was shut down, began to turn again, the inbox of Maybe Vlogs started receiving deals to represent their brands, and soon Mahek was being paid to travel to different cities to stay at nice hotels so that she could attend these brand events. Now, her father, Ali Raza, was, uncomfortable. Mahek, 5'2", 120, traveling by herself made him very uneasy, as any father would feel. He insisted that Ansreen, the mother, take time off from the pharmacy and accompany her daughter. Well, he didn't have to ask Ansreen twice, because she too was enjoying this little fame she was getting being in her daughter's TikToks. She was excited to travel. She's always wanted to travel. And when I say Ansreen enjoyed her little fame, I should say she fucking loved the attention she was getting from the fans. And don't tell Ali Raza, but she especially loved the attention that she was getting from the male population. So let's learn a little more about Ansreen Bukhari, okay? So she was born in 1976 in Pakistan. As you can imagine, that was a much simpler time then, but we're talking about a very different culture. So it's been said that all young Ansreen wanted was to be a flight attendant, right? A very simple goal in life, and the basic allure of that for her was to see the world. And this is where she had always wanted to travel. But Her parents had already mapped out Anzarine's life for her. Flight attendant was not part of it. For one, she was not going to go to school, and secondly, she had already been arranged to marry Ali Raza. And this would be the life for her since she was 20 years old. And in 2020, she was 43. And this was the only thing she knew up to this point in her life. And remember, she wanted to see the world. And now with her daughter Mahek, her dreams were coming true. She would find herself in these exotic locations, eating delicious foods. So everything is great. And it sounds like a feel-good story so far, right? Except mother and daughter would start making some painfully bad decisions. So, like I mentioned before, for Anzarine, Ali Raza was the only man she's ever known. Okay, so while out traveling with Mahek, she found herself entangled with a married man in his 30s. You know, basically this would be a hit and run, right, so to speak, because they would be on a plane heading home in short order and there was no more contact made between these two. And also, the world of social media had really opened up for Anzarine as well. You know, her DMs were filled with inquiries from other men, and she did revel in the compliments and the simple fact that even in her 40s, you know, all types of men were finding her desirable. But there was one man that stood out to her, and that was 27-year-old Saqib Hussein. And I assume there was a pause here because just look at it, 27 and 43, right? That is a pretty big age gap. But the man, he was just too charming and wound up winning her over. And let me just say out loud, something I think that we're all thinking at this point, right? Saqib, in seeing Anzarine, must have noticed Mahek too, right? You know, more in his age range, but I don't know, I guess we have to say, to each his own. Maybe he preferred older women, you know? Some people want another mother. And so the point is, he found Anzarine much more attractive than he did Mahek. And so they flirted via text, but soon that would change when they exchanged phone numbers. And throughout the days when Ali Raza was at work or he just wasn't around, they would talk many times throughout the day. You know, any chance they got, they were on the phone chit-chatting. And because this undeniable connection was growing between the two, Saqib decided to come clean to Anzarine about something, okay? So he was not the 27-year-old man that he was claiming. He was only 18 years old. And that was bad enough, I guess, to lay on Anzarine at the time. And he kind of didn't want to, or forgot to mention, that he also had these anger issues in which past girlfriends had to find out the hard way. So now here's Anzarine dealing with the fact that her online boyfriend had just shaved off about 9 years, creating an even greater age gap between the two. But like I said before, the man was just too charming and Anzarine could not resist. And so the two began meeting up in public. They did what couples did, eating out at restaurants, shopping, and eventually they would start getting hotels, okay? So they could privately discuss politics or whatnot, right? And they would get each other gifts, but Saqib showered her with gifts. He would send them directly to the Bukhari household, in which Anzarine had to tell Ali Raza that they were from those nutty TikTok fans. But like a lot of surface, shallow relationships birthed from sin, once the novelty wears off, so too does the lust that blinded you. Someone will lose interest, and that someone would be the older, more level-headed, married, with children, Anzarine. It was fun while it lasted. It was flattering. Saqib wanted to be with her so much, but now it started to feel like he wanted to be with her too much, as he was demanding more and more of her time. She was a grown adult with responsibilities, right? He began wanting to know where she was at all times and what she was doing at all times. And the more Anzarine started to pull away, the more he wanted her. He was becoming obsessed with her. And this affair with Saqib, it started in 2020 and it would continue to the end of 2021. So it definitely wasn't just this short fling. There were real emotions involved. And in those 2 years, Ansreen, she would do some regrettable things. And one of those things that happened multiple times was having FaceTime calls with Saqib, which would turn sexual. And it became regrettable when she found out that he had been recording these FaceTime calls the whole time. He would also reveal to her that he had snuck pictures of them when they were together in those hotels having sex. He was practically documenting her infidelity, and it mortified her. And like I mentioned before, for Ansreen, she had already reached the end of this relationship, but she also didn't know what to do or how to get out of it. She's seen how Saqib could be, how controlling and hostile he could be, so she braced herself on December 10th of 2021 when she finally decided to meet up Saqib one last time so she could face to face, respectably, break up with him. And as expected, Saqib was devastated and began to beg Ansreen to reconsider, to take him back. Well, either she felt what she did next would soften the blow, or she just caved into Saqib's relentless persistence. But they wound up sleeping together that night as well, which of course just made things worse the following day. Ansreen's phone alerts would go off non-stop. He left her countless voicemails and text messages. Now, besides it being just a general nuisance for your phone to blow up like that, she also had a husband to consider, so she blocked his number. And once she did that, you can imagine, it's like capping a bottle of soda after putting Mentos inside. It's just a matter of time that it explodes. So now let's look away from this disaster of a relationship, right? And go back to Mahek for a second, okay? So during this time of her mother's infidelity, she was still doing her TikTok as usual. Now, it mentions that it's not clear when Mahek learned of her mother's affair, but people will come out of the woodworks and claim to have seen Mahek and her mom, at those brand events where the mom would openly kiss this young man in public without concerns. So I think it's pretty safe to say that Mahek knew for quite some time and didn't really stop her mom from cheating on her father. And so when Ansreen blocked Saqib's number, guess who would be getting a flood of phone calls and texts? And if you guess it would be Mahek, then you would be right. Okay, now she's basically being harassed by her mother's lover to get into contact with her mother, right? That's a fucked up situation to put your daughter in. But to say it would go bad after this point would be a crazy understatement. Saqib, who is now 20 at this time, I believe, he is completely unhinged about losing Ansreen, okay? So according to articles, he had a history of taking breakups very poorly in the past. He was a man that just wouldn't be ignored when it came to these things, right? He even started popping up in Mahek's TikTok lives in the chat, demanding she tell her mom to get in touch with him. And the bombardment of Mahek's phones going forward from this point was just endless. And from my description of her so far, I mean, do you guys think that Mahek is the type to bite her tongue? In Mahek fashion, I guess, started telling him that, hey man, my mom's not a dog. She's not gonna just go to you at your beck and call, And she was really infuriated at how Saqib was talking to her. He was raising his voice or whatnot, so she'd tell him to, keep that voice down or find out, right? Don't fucking raise your voice at me. And because he was getting such pushback at this point, Saqib seemed to be losing his mind at this point. He was obsessed and he was spiraling, right? Since the breakup, phone records indicated that he made over 1,700 calls to her, right? That's nuts. Now, Ansreen didn't just ignore all these calls. It shows that she called him back about 200 times, but they only lasted, at best 3 minutes, it was said, which sounds to me like she tried a handful of times to rationalize with him. But all she got back was him pleading, and not accepting. And maybe about after 3 minutes, Ansreen got tired and she just hung up on him. And this would be about the time that she started blocking his calls. Now, within this drama between these two lovers, right, I gotta say, Mahek is technically innocent, okay? She didn't stop the relationship that she knew was wrong, but as well, she was just doing her thing and she got caught up in the middle because it was her mother, right? So what is going to happen next was completely out of pocket, and it would happen to Mahek of all people. And that was deep fake pictures of her started popping up online, and they were starting to go viral. And these were definitely fake images because Mahek has always made sure that her channel was wholesome and pure, right? They were just talking about makeup. These were naked pictures, okay? Someone had superimposed her face on other women's naked bodies, and they were very realistic. And a lot of people believed that it was actually Mahek. Her friends and her family, they saw these pictures and they were mortified. They were shocked. They actually thought these things were real. This, of course, infuriated Mahek because she had worked hard to maintain this pure image online, right? That was her brand, you know, and it also rooted in her strict Muslim faith and close family ties. They couldn't think of anybody else that would have done this, so Mahek and Ansarine were sure it was Saqib behind it. And to add insult to injury, Saqib was now threatening to expose the affair to Ansarine's husband and the son. This was completely anxiety-inducing for Ansarine. Her image with the people that she cared about most would be permanently damaged. And what's worse, the two most important men in her life. How would they think about her now? Imagine your son opening a picture of his mom in a sexual act. That's completely scarring. And because of this, Ansarine started slipping into depression. But Mahek, you know, she was always a spitfire. She doesn't take shit lying down. She took charge. She promised her mom she would handle it. She contacted Saqib, telling him to, back off, or else she's just making her own threats now. Saqib wasn't at all fazed by Mahek's threats. Instead, he responded that he could ruin her business, he could ruin her reputation if he wanted, and definitely he wanted to ruin the family. He would bring up things like wondering how her fans would react to the news of her 40-year-old mom having an affair with an 18-year-old boy. Mahek at this point, she's seething, right? She hadn't worked this hard to let this ruin this brand she's cultivated. It was basically war now. So Mahek went to her mom to reassure her by telling Ansarine, "I'll have him jumped. He won't know what day it is." Those were her words. And by January 2022, Saqib's behavior only worsened to the point that even his family noticed. Think of all the bad blood being spewed back and forth, Ansarine blocking his calls or whatnot. You think after all this time, he would have given up on this relationship, but he was coming to them now with an ultimatum to Ansarine and Mahek. And it was for Ansarine to give him another chance, or he'd release her nude pics and videos to her husband and son, and which he threatened before. But this time, the clock was ticking. He had given it a date. I mean, he was really on some demon shit. It's insane to think about Saqib. These are threatening calls, and in the same breath, in the same conversation, he's pleading for her to take him back. But Ansarine, she was more than done with him. Seeing his manipulations, he was basically dangerous. And to go along with the blackmail, Saqib wasn't gonna lose any money over this bad relationship, okay? Saqib also demanded $3,800. And you might be thinking, hey, what's with this arbitrary number he came up with? Why not just round up to $4K? Hey, why not just make it an even $5,000? Saqib had gone back, put on his accountant's cap, reviewed the receipts and the statements, and that was the amount he figured he spent on gifts and dinners during their relationship. So Mahek, as you can imagine, after hearing these threats, she didn't take it lightly. On top of that, she's getting a fine. So hey, she's like, fuck this. So she issues a threat right back in calm, cold, I guess, Mahek fashion. She told him, "I'm sorry that this year you'll be gone, Saqib." Meanwhile, Ansarine's husband, Ali Rasa, he started to receive these messages in his inboxes. I guess he's watching TikTok as well, of course, right? His daughter's on TikTok. He's supporting. And these were messages from somebody hinting that his wife was having an affair. And so Ali Raza, thinking this was just a troll, dismissed the messages and carried on about his life. And here at this point, I was asking myself, maybe you are too, why didn't they just go to the police, right? Ansarine could have gotten a restraining order. She could have pressed charges for harassment and extortion or the like, but you have to think, once you do something like that, everything would become pretty much public. For Ansreen, this would jeopardize her marriage and her family. And to Mahek, a scandal like this could destroy her brand. So instead, they decided to handle it themselves. And this is where the story will take a very dark turn. So now Saqib's threats have caused Ansreen immense anxiety. She was a nervous mess, okay? And Mahek, every day seeing her mom break down, decided to end the threats once and for all. You know, don't forget, she's this young, attractive, and she had online influence. She had no shortage of men willing to help. So she reached out to a fellow creator she knew named Rakan Carwin and spun a tale. Basically, she put herself in her mom's position, claiming that, it was not her mom who had been involved with Saqib and that it was actually her, and now she was being extorted. So Rakan, in true simp fashion, called Saqib asking for proof of the $3,800 he had claimed to have spent. Also insisting on a face-to-face meeting. And of course, this would lead to shouting on the phone, loud, heated exchanges. And Saqib's sister, right, couldn't help but overhear all this yelling her brother was doing. And she warned her brother that it sounded like a setup. But Saqib didn't listen. He just brushed her concerns aside. And by February of 2022, Saqib's sister again noticed that he was falling into some type of funk, some type of depression. And it was really apparent. And this made him a bit unpredictable to her. And she noticed his anger. So she alerted her parents, but by this time, Saqib had already pretty much shut everybody out. He was not listening anymore. He was adamant about getting the money deposited into his account. This was his hyper focus, right? And seeing every day that there was no money in his account, he gave the women a final ultimatum of 48 hours. In the other camp of Mahek and Ansreen, they didn't feel that paying him would actually solve anything, right? They didn't trust him that he'd delete the pictures and the videos, so instead, they devised a plan to trap him, scare him into submission, and destroy his phone. Effectively erasing all the evidence themselves. And then on February 10th, the money was due. Saqib checked his account. There was no money there. And so he left a voicemail for Mahek saying that, okay, time's up. I'm going to expose everything to your father. In turn, Mahek calling him right back, proposing a meetup that night so she could just hand him the money. Saqib agreed. But behind the scenes, Mahek had assembled what the press would later call the Monopoly 8. Essentially, it was just a group of 8 people that would show up that night, which included herself and her mother. There was, of course, the simp Rakan Carwin. He would bring his best friend along, a kid named Reyes Jamal. There was an Amir Jamal, a Natasha Akhtar, Mohammed Patel, and a Sanaf Gula Mustafa. And the plan? Show up with enough muscle to scare Saqib and destroy his phone, eliminating the evidence that they didn't think maybe he could have just easily backed up on his computer or another hard drive or whatever. Just destroying a phone doesn't seem like it's going to do anything. Meanwhile, Saqib called his friend, a kid named Hashim Ajazuddin, asking for a ride to Leicester to collect a debt. Now, let me tell you about Hashim. This kid, he's just 21, just like his friend Saqib, okay? And he's the type of friend who'd drop everything to help someone out, right? He loved to play soccer, he loved his family, and he was known for his generosity, right? Perfect person that anybody would like to know. And he had absolutely nothing to do with any of this drama. He didn't even know about it, didn't even ask about it. He was just being a good friend who didn't know his friend's full story, except that he needed to collect money. So late at night, around 11 p.m., Saqib and Hashim set off to the Tesco superstore, which was chosen by Mahek. Now, Mahek's crew, they split up into 2 cars, a blue Seat Leon driven by Reyes Jamal, and an Audi TT driven by Rakan Carwin. And they all wore baklavas, dressed in black, very menacing appearance, right? And notably, none of them brought any money. Of course, because this was never about paying Saqib back, right? This was about sending a message. So Hashim would wind up driving to the wrong Tesco at first, okay? And that would cause them to arrive late at the right location at about 1:15 a.m. And immediately, Once Saqib saw the surroundings and the cars and men with baklavas in cars, he knew that something was off. He immediately tells Hashim to get the fuck out of here and fast. And what happens next was captured on CCTV, and there is a haunting call to the police by Saqib that has never been released to the public in respects of the family. So the two cars chase Saqib and Hashim at speeds over 100 miles per hour, right? Mahek would actually call Saqib while they're driving, while they're pursuing him, demanding that he pull over. And when he refused, she gave Saqib a pretty damn chilling threat. She said, "Well then, watch what I do to you." Now, completely, utterly frightened, right? Saqib called emergency services, which is, calling the police in the UK, pleading for help. All in the midst of these cars, attempting to force them off the road. And the confusion for Hashim. I mean, his heart must have been beating through his chest, because not only did he have absolutely no idea what was going on, but all of a sudden, men in mass were chasing them down on a highway, and they were doing these dangerous speeds. The transcript for the call that Saqib made to the police is known, and he told them, "They're hitting into the back of the car very fast. Please, I'm begging you, I'm going to die." And this race, this chaos would go on for the next 10-mile stretch of this highway as Mahek's crew chased Saqib and Hashim. So when the two cars, containing the Monopoly 8, they failed to box in the little silver car. They started to ram Hashim's car, and it was on the third hit. This is when the silver Skoda lost control, careened across the highway, hitting the center guardrail, propelling into a tree and bursting into flames. Ansreen, once she saw what had happened, knowing that there was no way that Saqib or anyone could have survived that, she actually broke down and cried. But the reaction of the rest of this Monopoly 8, the reaction of Mahek and her crew, really takes away the humanity of this whole situation. Remember, the goal was not to kill Saqib, just to bully and bloody him a bit if they need be, but not one person in either vehicle stopped to help, to see if there was anything that they could do. They just drove away, assuming that the two men were dead, or even more cold-blooded, leaving the two young men to die. They drove their cars to the safety of their homes or their hideout or wherever. They checked their vehicles for damages and then hid them. They all went home, and I guess hoping no one would ever find out. At 1:30 a.m., a passing truck driver spotted the flames and called the police. In this particular case, the law did move quickly. Fire and rescue were promptly on the scene, and they discovered the bodies of two people inside, later identified as Saqib Hussain and Hashim Ajazuddin. So the police, they would do their inquiries into the accident, and it became apparent that the deaths of the two men, this was no accident, right? Because it was immediately linked to that 999 call, which had been made by Saqib. This call would disturbingly get cut off when the car crashes. And so a murder investigation was immediately launched. It was established that Mr. Hussain had been in a relationship with an Ansreen Bukhari, and from there, the case was effectively cracked, right? Wide open. By 4:45 a.m. of that same night, now it's morning, right? Police were already making arrests. When they came to Mahek's house, according to the police, she was desperately trying to delete everything from her phone. She even gave the police the wrong password over and over again to unlock her phone, causing it to reset to factory settings. Ansreen Bukhari, Mahek Bukhari, and Natasha Akhtar were arrested during that same morning of the collision, with Reyes Jamal and Karwin being arrested 3 days later. Amir Jamal and Gula Mustafa were arrested in March, and there was another fellow named Mohammed Patel. He's not going to go on this list because he was cooperating with the police the whole entire time. He was the only one giving up the whole situation. Now, the interrogation tapes shows a complete contrast in mother and daughter. So while Ansreen sat in silence pretty much during the whole entire thing, and in the other room, Mahek, she couldn't stop talking. She spun this elaborate story about how Saqib and Hashim had caused their own crashes. She even suggested that they were drunk or even crashed on purpose. But there was one thing she didn't know about And that was Saqib's 999 call that evening, and it pretty much captured everything, and it showed what a liar she could be. According to the Daily UK, during the trial, the TikTok star showed little remorse, allegedly sharing laughs with her co-defendants. During the testimony, Mahek claimed that she was completely shaken and brokenhearted when she learned that her mother was having this affair with Saqib because she believed that she had a perfect family, right? But those darn witnesses back in 2021 that seen Ansarine and Saqib kissing each other in front of everyone, including Mahek, would destroy that narrative completely. But staying true to her character, Mahek would continue to lie on the stand about the night of the incident, the same lie that she would tell the police when she was first interrogated by the police.
There's a car that's coming on the right hand side, a Seattle Leon, don't know the model or anything, but it was blue, come straight down, no speed, nothing, normal, on the right hand side. We were always on the left hand side. This right hand side car's come now, the Leon, the blue one, has come straight next to me and come right in front of me, not very close. I've always said to myself, I'm a very good driver when it comes to this. I've been driving for 5 years, 45 years, and I've said to myself, always keep a 2 to 3 second rule gap, always. When I've said to myself, always done that. So this car's come not close, I've always braked. So I was doing 60, it was 70, I think it was 70 on the dual carriage or 60. I was doing 50 straight away, went back, went to 50 to 60, went back. This car didn't do anything to me. I don't know who, just a normal car going on the right to the left. The silver car, I don't know which brand it was, model. It's come zooming down. I've kept this 2 to 3 second rule gap, and the blue Leon's in front, and I'm at the back. This silver car's come and cut into the middle, so we're basically all 3 cars very close. I braked, and I said to my mum, "What is this car trying to do?" And my mum saying, "May, just keep your distance. Everything's going to be okay. It's okay." Just a reckless few people, just reckless because they know it's all the way down. If there's any cameras, there's going to be cameras. They must know there's no cameras. So they've gone all the way down. They've cut into my car. I've kept my distance. I've braked. I think got to at least 40 because there was no cars behind me. Going to 40. This car was not threatening me, but agitating the blue car. So the blue car went onto the right lane, which is the overtaking lane, and the silver car went onto the right lane with the same car as the blue. So then the blue car went onto the left, and the silver car kept into the left, and it was just harassing. Like the blue car was trying to let you go, like go, you can go now because I'm letting you. But this silver car was not letting the blue car go. So I was thinking, okay, well, they're not agitating me, they're not trying to put me off my driving. I'm going on my left lane, I'm further away from these cars. So like I said, they were doing their own thing. I've gone past on the right lane now. The blue car's in front always, the silver car was behind. I've gone past and I've gone further away from this car on the left side, and then the blue car has caught up with me on the right side. I don't know who they are, I didn't even see the silver car as well. And the silver car, all I hear is like a you can hear like a bang, but not a big bang. It was like you hit behind me, basically. The silver car's hit the blue car at the back, like a touch, but you can tell the blue car has gone a bit faster. So I've looked at my mum and I goes, "Mum, what is going on? What is wrong with, are they, I don't know if they're drunk, what are they trying to do to this blue car in general?" So my mum goes, "May, like I said, leave it. You're not involved. You don't know what's going on. You just go straight on and leave it." I goes, "Okay, that's fine." This blue car's gone straight now, and this silver car's gone behind. And as soon as I said, "Mum, as soon as we see a slip road, we're gonna go to a slip road." We've gone forward, and the silver car's hit the back of the blue car. The blue car, see it, like Leon's gone, completely gone. As soon as I've turned around, this silver car's gone. Out from I didn't see. All I've seen is they've hit, and all I see is right, like a swerve. The silver car swerved to not my side, to the other side of the dual carriageway where the metal bits are, basically. And I didn't see the car after that. I didn't hear a bang. Apparently there was mentioned there was a tree. I didn't see no tree. I didn't see anything. I've gone straight on. I've looked at my mum and I said, "Mum, what?" I was just in shock. She goes, "May, there's a slip road."
So, in summary, so you don't have to rewind and listen to that voice again, notice how she glazes herself for being a good driver to start, which which alone convinces me that she is a narcissist. So she and her mother were minding their own business that night, and they were on the left side of the road when a blue car, a blue Leon, I don't know what the model is. That's extra detail with a touch of ignorance. And you can tell she's lied a lot in her life. Liars love to add these useless details when a simple explanation will suffice. So what Mahek is trying to say is a blue car zooms past them and changes lanes right in front of them into the left lane. Then a silver car zooms up as well and wedges itself directly, dangerously in between her and the blue car. And now they're all on the left lane. Now, isn't that much easier to understand than a 3-minute explanation of car models? And I went 50, 60. No, actually, I went 70. And then I dropped it down to 40. Oh, and officer, it's so weird, but my mother's ex-lover is in the silver car. It's so weird. He's not harassing us, just a random blue Leon. Hey, I don't know the model. And it's 1:30 a.m. in the middle of the night and we're all here. It's what a coincidence, right? And oh my God, I'm so honest. And also, I'd like to add, there is a thing called car telemetrics, and it had her going from 80 to 100 miles per hour at that time. So detectives, they already know this, and they were just basically letting her cook herself. So at the trial, all of the Monopoly 8 would take the stand, each with their own excuses for why they were there that night. From not knowing at all what was supposed to go down, that they were just in the car, and some of them even blaming that they were on drugs for their actions. In the end, Judge Spencer, disgusted with the whole group, especially with Mahek, whom to him appeared to be the most unbothered, as if she was going to beat this case, right? According to BBC, she waved at reporters as the trial was taking place. She appeared to really love the attention, even if it was negative, and she was seen smiling and laughing even during moments, where it was supposed to be quiet. Time for introspection, young lady. It's almost as if she was treating the courtroom like it was a high school classroom, right? She is 24 at this point, but seemed to have never aged out of that schoolyard popular girl behavior. And if her being a narcissist is true, then she probably believes that everyone believes everything she says, which of course the jury didn't. They only needed 28 hours, a good night's rest, to come back the following day after deliberation with guilty verdicts for 7 of the 8, which I mentioned earlier. A man named Mohammed was the only one found not guilty since he had cooperated with police from the very beginning. So sentencing was held on September of 2023. During the sentencing, Judge Spencer didn't mince words as he pretty much tore down Mahek's facade. Judge Spencer basically told Mahek that her social media fame was F tier at best, but she flaunted like she was an A-lister, and that Mahek, and this will be in quotes, is utterly self-obsessed with a wholly unjustified sense of entitlement and no apparent awareness of the impact you have on others, oblivious to the damage you do. The prosecution was right to categorize this case as cold-blooded murder, and he said that to her face. And he didn't spare Anzarine as well. He said, "You were the grown-up adult in the group, and you should have behaved like the grown-up adult, but you allowed your understandable concerns about exposure to strip yourself of any rational judgment." And Mahek Bukhari was sentenced to 26 years and 9 months in prison. Mahek Bukhari was sentenced to 31 years and 8 months in prison. 23-year-old Natasha Akhtar, 28-year-old Amir Jamal, and 23-year-old Sanab Gula Mustafa were found not guilty of murder, but were found guilty of 2 counts of manslaughter. So Natasha, she would get 11 years and 8 months. Amir got 14 years and 8 months. And Gula Mustafa, 14 years and 9 months. And then we have 29-year-old Rakan Karwin, the man that was initially fooled by Mahek to do her bidding and was driving one of the vehicles, and he was given 26 years and 10 months. And his best friend that he asked to come along that night, 23-year-old Reyes Jamal, the driver of the other car, received 31 years. And according to the Daily UK, after Mahek was convicted and led out of the courtroom, she blew a kiss to her father and said, "Call me." And it really makes me wonder, if Mahek has yet to comprehend the magnitude of her situation. Because if she sat down to think about it, for her father, his family is destroyed. He'll be in his 80s when she gets out, and all those amazing moments that were supposed to have been made, maybe she got married, maybe she had kids, these are all lost. And what about her mother? Her life is effectively over. It's over because Ansreen is 46, going into prison for 27 years. Do the math. She'll be 73 when she gets out. She'll be old. Her own parents would have passed by then, and who knows what kind of family support she's going to even have after a situation like this when she gets out. Would her reputation still precede her, and she'll come out and, her loved ones will still view her as that deceitful, wife? But then again, I think about how Mahek is, and we're asking a lot of her to consider these things about the future, right? We must remember we're talking about Mahek, who probably can't see beyond her own reflection in the mirror. And I read that the only time that she actually showed remorse during this whole entire trial, according to reports, was when she was sentenced. She showed remorse for herself. Tears came down her face at that time, And I'm just going to cap it off with this. It's an incredibly sad case that never needed to happen. Unchecked emotions and really simple-minded plots. It all led to this, and I can't help but wonder, okay, if Saqib was true to his ultimatum at the end there, would being paid, what he thought he was owed, was that all it took to prevent all of this? That would mean $3,800 was the price of 9 lives that night, 2 of which, of course, paid the ultimate price. So, and here let's take the moment to honor the memory of the one person in this case that was truly innocent in all this, and that was Hashim. And even though he played such a small part in this story, he was in the most devastating part of it. And from all that I read about him, he was a wonderful human and just 21 years old, figuring things out as all 21-year-olds do. And he was just doing his friend a favor, without question. He would happily do this for any of the people that he cared about and needed him. A family member said in a statement, everyone who knew Hashim, they loved him. His death is just a massive loss to our family, but also to our whole community. On that tragic day, he was simply helping his friend, and this resulted in his death. It has been extremely painful, not only losing Hashim at such a young age, but also the circumstances in which we lost him. And not to ever say that Saqib deserved what happened to him, okay? He definitely did not. His family is shattered as well. It turns out that they didn't see the side of him that was portrayed in that courtroom. To them, he was wonderful and loving. His parents would give this statement about him. I never imagined that I would have to bury one of my children, that I would spend every waking moment suddenly expecting him to come back and tell me everything's okay. Endlessly searching for his face whenever I'm in public, even though I know it's impossible. What do you guys think? Do you think that Saqib would have still continued to blackmail the women even after he got his money, And who is the most to blame for this tragedy? Is it Ansreen for her infidelity with a boy half her age? Or is it Mahek for escalating a situation for a mere $3,800? So leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to see what you guys think, and I'll respond back with my own thoughts, of course. And hey, just know I appreciate you guys watching for this long, this far. Please join the channel if you haven't already. I hope I earned a like at least. And don't forget to protect the ones that you love and love the ones that protect you.